it's Mr. Dr. Lady, Eileen Gallagher, here with another episode of the Final Percent podcast. And today we are interviewing Danny Neifert, who is a skincare specialist and owns the company Skin Harmonics. She has been interested in nature and skincare since she was young and has evolved into a business where she is teaching people how to take care of their skin naturally. So I'm going to let her introduce herself today and tell us a little bit about her background, and then we'll ask some questions that we can share with you about how to take good care of your skin from a natural perspective.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Excited to be here with you today.
Yes, a wonderful introduction. And yeah, skincare for me began a long time ago. I spent a lot of time outdoors. I was raised off-grid, and one thing led to the other. I became a young mother, and I found myself trying to care for my baby's skin. And I ran straight into, or right back into everything that I had been taught as a child, but then had separated myself from as a young adult, trying to conform to dominant popular convention and culture, because we did move off grid eventually. And I had to rediscover, and I just was in this deep inquiry of like, what do we do with skin? Because of course my daughter's skin was just, you know, if anybody has ever seen the skin of a 1-day-old baby, it'll just melt you all the way through. And the amount of responsibility that you feel is just so immense. And so that began my whole discovery around skincare. I got into aromatherapy, I did gardening, I did home crafting, where I made everything under the sun for our skin. I remember at some point going to the grocery store with my kids at a young age and them begging to buy toothpaste or something from that aisle that wasn't homemade, because all they had known is everything that I had made for them out of jars.
Well, and they probably didn't realize what quality it was.
No.
They're like, oh, I want what my friends have.
Right, exactly. So, and then I just kept going. Like, I just stayed with it. And eventually I went to aesthetic school in my late 20s and was taught clinical skincare, which is all about how to correct issues with the skin, and learned about microdermabrasion and chemical peels. And it was this time of like, I'm going to go and learn from like big girl skin time, like from the big professionals, from like the proper place to get a proper skin education. And I did that and got my license. And this, at the time I was living in Taos, New Mexico, and I opened up a skin sanctuary, the Skin Sanctuary of Taos, this place that was dedicated to skin. And I was in this huge,
sort of an internal conflict?
Yes.
Okay. How when you did this? Because it was you learned a certain way when you were growing up, and then what you were actually taught is the right way didn't intuitively feel right.
Exactly. There was this collision of worlds, and there was great chaos, and it was just a mess, honestly. And it took me 5 years to sort through it all. And what emerged from that great time of confusion and chaos was this completely different methodology for being with skin. And from that place, I've never looked back. I switched over completely to what I put together that actually works. And it's this fusion of medical and holistic skincare. And who knew? It's like they had a love child. And to me, from what I've seen, it outperforms what holistic skincare can do on itself, and it outperforms what medical skincare can do by itself. Both of those camps are limited, in my view, based on all this new learning that I've procured over the last many years.
Yeah. So I think we've known each other for kind of about 18 months or a little bit longer. I met you at a social event, and then you started telling me about what you do for skincare. Yeah. And I was like, ooh, that sounds really interesting, because there's all these different, and as I'm aging.
And you're in the medical industry or profession, and so you have a background of all these things.
And sometimes medicine doesn't always do it the right way. There are certain things we do really well, especially in acute or urgent situations. And then there's things in terms of long-term prevention and long-term management that we could actually do better if we do things more holistically. So we got into a really interesting conversation, and then I came to see you. And you told me a little bit about the gentleman that you interacted with, that you have used the dermal nutrients. So I don't know if you want to go into kind of what your skincare regimen kind of looks like and how you encourage people to do it, and why you shifted from some of the stuff you learned in aesthetic school to this more all natural, and kind of what helped you to see that that was a sort of better way, if you will, to help people take care of their skin.
We're diving right in, aren't we?
Or if there's something else you feel like you want to talk about first.
It. This is the kernel. This is like the seed of it all. So to explain this, if we go back into the 1900s, little history lesson here, chemical pills were discovered. And this is what created what I refer to now as trauma-based skincare. And it developed in the 1900s because doctors discovered that if they peeled the epidermis or dissolved the epidermis off of somebody, that our dermal layer has the ability to replace it.
And so for everybody that doesn't know, the epidermis is the top layer of your skin, and then the dermis is the underneath layer that reproduces to come up.
I think of like the dermis as like the cake layer and the epidermis as the frosting layer. That's a good way to think about it. And so back in the 1900s, they discovered this. And what we know now, and what I've learned over the years, is when we over-exercise and just get this cake dermal layer to replace, the dermal layer thins at a faster rate, and it's thinning anyways at 1% a year as we age. And so this over-exercising of, chemical peels, microdermabrasion, lasering is actually diminishing dermal thickness rather than extending it. So it's the opposite of longevity.
But that's not what people think. People think that doing all of those things are actually, and initially from talking with you, it does make the skin look healthier because it takes off some of the coloring or wrinkles or other kind of damage.
Yeah, there's like a burst of new skin cells.
But then
after the trauma fluid in our skin goes away and that swelling goes down, it's a tax on the dermal layer life long term. So you get a burst of something that is like a trauma response. It's like a terror scream from the skin in a way. And then when that fades, you have to keep doing it, and you have to keep doing it. And then the overall health and dermal thickness declines faster and faster and faster. So,
sorry to interrupt, but for some of the stuff that's happening now, where people are doing a lot of the chemical peels and dermal abrasions and laser therapy and all of that, that's really been the last 20 to 30 years?
That got popular, believe it or not, in the 1930s and 1950s. So,
but I would say, like, in my earlier years of medicine, like, we didn't see it as much in dermatology, and now it's got, or at least from my experience, and now it's gotten more
it's just
popular.
Grown. Yeah. I mean, it may be.
But I think my reason for asking the question is I don't think we have, as with so many things, we don't know what the long-term ramifications are of those things until they're mass used.
It's everywhere.
Now it is, but we're not going to know what that looks like then for, 20, 30, 40 years as people continue to age.
Right. And that's one of the things that I've had complete, I've been really fortunate that I've been able to, because I started skincare when I was essentially about 20 years old, and I'm somewhere in my 50s.
And you look great.
I don't care. So I've been able to look up close with people's skin over a long period of time with all different colors of skin, types of skin, and see skin 15 and 20 years later, some of my clients. So I've been able to see this progression, and there's like a whole catalog that I've seen because I've stayed with skin for so long. So yes, this whole, what I call harm to heal approach is what is obsolete in my book. But it gets worse. So in the 70s, there was this whole approach of drying to fix, where acne was diagnosed, and that it was because there was too much oil, too much excess skin cells, and too much bacteria. And that was the root, that was what was causing acne. And it turns out that's not true at all. Internal inflammation is what's causing acne. And that was first published in 2009. And the skincare products for acne came out in the 1970s.
Yeah, like when I was a teenager, it was all hydrogen peroxide and drying
Benzoyl
out the skin, benzoyl peroxide,
tea
exactly.
tree, all of those things. And so what it turns out that by adding those types of topicals, it's like putting gasoline on a fire. So even though they came out in 2009 and said, aha, it's inflammation, the skincare products that were made popular in the 1970s that we just were talked about were never updated. And they just fell in line with harm to heal. Well, now it just added that extra layer of dry to fix. Like there's like how they was just kind of the momentum of that just kept carrying over. And
this people haven't really examined it and said, oh, is that actually really
right?
And maybe we need to revisit that.
Right. And honestly, the only reason I figured this out was, and this is another important thing that happened, was maybe 20 years ago, there was an invention called dermal nutrients, and they're patented by a doctor. There's only one source, and we now have the ability to feed the skin. So instead of depleting it, and it's like food, not bombs approach, basically, where we can
going back to the hippie days.
Right. So we can feed the skin in this really profound way where our skin topically, it's like a miracle grow, absorbs the nutrients, metabolizes it, and makes new skin cells. And makes new skin cells from a place of abundance and nutrients rather than being
reactive to
burned and burned and peeled and peeled. And so that created this like whole new world of what's possible with longevity and regenerative skincare. And what I discovered in that process is that it's very much like regenerative farming, but it's for our skin. And the skin heals from the inside out, and it goes through phases as it heals. And it de-armors, it kicks up all this gunk that is held in our skin as blackheads, milia, milia clusters, like all these things is actually pushed up, and it comes up and out of the skin. And another old belief is we've been just trying to band-aid our skin with like, we just want to press it all down, down and in, where it just goes away, but it doesn't. And so all of these conventional practices that are harm to heal and dry to fix are shutting down our skin's natural self-purifying mechanism. Because when our skin is in its natural state, it's bouncy and fluffy and hydrated. It has new skin cells coming up from underneath. It's this self-purifying membrane that's soft and permeable, rather than now it just being compacted in a holding position. It's static, it's not dynamic. And then we're calling that conventional corrective skincare. And
Greg would love it. We're talking about dynamics.
Yeah.
But we talk so much about being dynamic and that it's so important in terms of growth. And so it's very correlated in the same, totally different subject matter when we talk about it with personal growth.
It's like the skin comes alive.
Yeah.
The skin comes alive, it sings, it like becomes this beautiful, permeable, glowing layer.
Well, and you could tell just the way you talk about it, like you're so passionate about it. It's really cute. Or maybe cute's the wrong word. Like it's great to see someone who's so excited about what they do, because it feels it's filling a purpose for you, because you feel like you're helping people learn how to really actually take care of themselves in a way that's constructive rather than destructive, which is so much of what kind of the general market is.
Completely.
So I have a couple of questions. So I want you to talk a little bit about what the skincare routine looks like and kind of how you care for people. And then I know that what you do is pretty unique. Are there other people that are kind of doing this, or do you, because I know obviously the dermal nutrients are through this physician, and so he does some of it, but how do we get it into more people's hands too?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll start with what the skincare routine looks like, because it's very simple. And
I'll agree, it's relatively simple.
Yeah, yeah. The first step is to do minimal cleansing. So there's this fixation on cleansing the skin, gotta, kill the bacteria, clean it. And it's
do all the abrasion therapy and shower every day.
Right. And it's very much like like soil. Our skin is like soil. So the more we try to sanitize our soil and put pesticides on it, the worse the soil health is going to get. So it's the same with our skin. So it's minimal cleansing, warm water cleansing, because our skin isn't getting dirty from other things that just don't rinse off with water. It's getting dirty because it's self-congesting on itself. It's our own gunk that's gunking up our skin. It's not these other things. It's not, the bacteria, environmental factors. Yeah, they play it's not sweat. It's not our sunscreen. It's because our skin isn't hydrated enough. So the first thing is to stop over cleansing and to just use warm water to cleanse your skin, even if you're a farmer.
Or like a soft cloth with water.
Yeah,
like
just warm water. It takes everything away and it won't strip your skin. And then second is just mist a natural spring water, and just simple, plain, natural spring water. And I have my own hydrating mist, but it's not absolutely necessary. And then a good hydrating serum would be an aloe vera gel, plain, from the food aisle, not from the skin aisle, because that's where they have all the weird chemicals in it.
Do they put drying agents in the one that's on the skin aisle?
No, it's preservatives.
Okay.
And colors. Sometimes you'll buy aloe and it's green.
Bright green.
Like it's not green in nature. So food grade aloe vera gel. I sell my own serum that has the nutrients in it. You can't buy the dermal nutrients any other place.
Unless you can get it from a medical.
Me or from another provider. But the aloe vera gel is at least that it's
a rich moisturizer.
It loves water. It brings water to it. And then on top of it, you lay a dense moisturizer. So of course I sell my own dense moisturizers, but the thickest oil or lipid that you can find, tallow, castor oil, and cocoa butter, shea butter, mango butter, something that's very dense. And that goes on top and traps that water in the skin. And that's the basic.
And your recommendation is to do it twice a day. So in the morning and then in the
morning
evening,
and
just
at
to
night.
trap the moisture in your skin.
Exactly. And to give it an insert water. A lot of people are using a moisturizer and think that that's it. There's that special step of misting using an aloe vera gel or something that loves water. And then like you're inserting water and then trapping it with a dense moisturizer. Yeah.
And then sort of my follow-up question then was, someone could work with you. Are there other people that are using this, or is it? You can access the dermal nutrients from this other source, but I've been the one that combined it with all these other elements. Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm the one that can actually do a deep pore cleansing on the skin. So that is another aspect of this whole process. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's my only paid service. And I think that's the only thing that, as far as retexturing skin, that is a service worth paying for, is having your pores cleaned out really, really well. And people are trying to vacuum their pores out. They're trying to use clay masks. They're trying to scrub it. There's all these different ways of trying, to clean out the pores. But the more you do it, the worse it gets, unless all of these other elements are in place. Like these products that I mentioned, it changes the state of your skin. Because
you're hydrating and then you're able to move things from the inside out.
Yes.
So then you can remove it and it will be out because it's coming to the surface.
Yes, it's like the whole state, it's a state change within the skin. And then I go in, or somebody that really knows what they're doing goes in and cleans out the pores. And not by just scrubbing, but actually meticulously cleans out the pores and all the gunk as it's going through this self-purifying process where it's pushing things up. And then, and I think there's people that are doing pieces of this in a lot of different places, but as far as I know, I'm the only one that has brought all of the pieces together, because the skincare world is very complicated.
As is most stuff in medicine.
Nutrition, and medicine. There's so much noise when it comes to skincare. It's just at a high pitch and a fervor, and it's so overwhelming. And even for me as a professional, my enthusiasm about what I do is so hard won, because I really struggled for a long time within that same mess.
When you look at anti-aging and supplements and so many areas in the wellness industries, a lot of the monies are poured into things that, a lot of the supplements aren't regulated, and there can be things that potentially could be harmful. We don't know enough.
Right.
And so I think this is one of those where these things are supposed to be helpful, but aren't always long-term
and they've
helpful.
been in place for so long. Like they're monetized
Right.
and the tracks have been laid.
Right.
And so I mean, I don't know. I dream of a world where
You just need to get you in the hands of more people.
yes, but where all the information about how to live sustainably is accessible, and that people have the means to do it, and
Right.
that they have their own inner guidance to say yes and no to things in a way.
Well, and
that
that's the whole
makes
piece of
sense.
doing the education so that people
Right.
understand a little bit. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
if you're lucky enough to live in Boulder or Santa Barbara
Yeah.
area, you can see Danny. We're
Yeah.
going to put the links to your
Yeah.
Skin
Yep.
Harmonics and your Instagram and all of that. But I think that teaching people that they can do it, because the serums are a little expensive too, but they last
Yeah.
for a period of
'Cause,
time.
yeah, they're the patented
Yeah,
serums.
but
Yeah.
I mean, just the fact that people can do it with water and aloe, like a mist, and with aloe, and then with it over the counter, like a shea butter or castor
Yeah.
oil or other things to do the moisturizing. I think that's great information for people to be able to sort of do it yourself.
Yeah.
Because everyone likes DIY these days.
Yeah, and that's how bad the skin industry is, that if you do those things, you're actually way ahead of people that are spending
Thousands of
hundreds and
dollars.
thousands of dollars
Yeah.
on their skin, especially if you're immunized with the knowledge to not participate in those trauma-based procedures. All of those things that I listed out, they are based on everything I've seen over, my whole career. Like, it's just, it doesn't end well. And so just not participating in those things and then doing that simple layering system and a sunscreen. I mean, I love vitamin D and we need to get it over our entire bodies, absolutely. But we should protect our décolleté, our hands, and our face. These are high exposure areas that there's no reason we should, put 2 or 3 or more lifetimes that are necessary there. But sunscreen, and that's gold for people.
Talk a little bit about sunscreen, because that's something that's come up in some of our community, kind of about are the sunscreens more harmful because some of the stuff that's in them. So you and I have talked about it and the importance of using a really clean sunscreen as opposed to one that has a lot of the chemicals in it.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, there was a big announcement that came out recently, less than a year ago, about the anything that's with an octa something, octa, OCT, all of those that are listed out, those are chemical, and benzoin and is another one. And there might be a couple other, I have a whole list on it. But they finally, after all these years, came out and said, hey, yeah, these are major endocrine disruptors. And so the idea is to use a physical sunscreen, which is zinc and titanium, a physical barrier sunscreen. And I'm thrilled to say that over the last 5 years, and especially the last 2 years, it's so much easier to find clean sunscreens.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the producers, when that news came out, I think it was now maybe even a couple years ago.
Yeah, maybe. They got their stuff together, because that's the thing. When people get educated, we can vote with our dollars,
right.
And then they're forced to make something.
To modify things, because people won't buy the stuff that's damaging or harmful to their skin.
Yeah.
And especially like you talked about at the beginning, having a newborn or having a young baby where you worry as the parents, like, how do I best protect them? Like, you don't want to be putting a ton of sunscreen on these little kids as they're running around at the beach or on vacations and stuff during the summertime when they're exposed to
but
a
you
ton
don't
of
want to be the
sun.
bad parent and burn
where
your
they get
kid.
where they get third-degree burns and then end up having problems later, and especially for people who are very light-skinned or freckle and have a predisposition to burn. They don't have as much melanin in their skin. But I think it's having the education to know what are the right ones to use. I think even that environmental working group or EWG has a really good list of what you can use for sunscreens.
Yeah. Companies are shaping up.
Yeah, that's a great place to look. But the most important thing is to really look at the ingredients on what you're using.
Yeah, but you have to know what to look for.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's an important thing for all of our listeners.
Yeah.
To really look at sunscreen and how you protect yourself without harming yourself.
Right. Yes.
It's one of the things that I've seen in medicine, and you and I even talked about it, because when I had, the last time I had a skin extraction done, I had a couple things in my ear. And so we talked about it afterwards. And I was like,
forgot about that.
I think so much of the topical stuff that we're seeing with skin cancers is from the years of repetitive use of potentially some not so great sunscreens. And then on top of it, a lot of the glasses and stuff that people are wearing now with plastics, like people get problems kind of on their nasal bridge.
Where things rub.
Yeah, and so you and I were talking about, like, is it from AirPods because people are wearing the
When
plastic
they're rubbing
in their ear? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, as things evolve with our technology and other things, our exposures are increased.
Yeah.
And so we just have to be mindful. Like, we don't have all the answers, and the answers are always, evolving and changing. Right. But I think the more we can give people tools to take care of themselves, the more they're going to use those tools to do what they think is best for themselves and their children.
Yeah. And interestingly, to speak to the timeline of how over a lifetime, like what happens with our skin is in our teens, it's all about acne. And so that conventional skincare comes in about dry to fix. And so the skin gets compacted and starts to get congested. And then we move into our 30s and 40s and 50s, and it's all this anti-aging. And then we're just diminishing dermal thickness and again, shutting down that self-purifying mechanism. And then with senior skincare, as we move into our 60s, 70s, and 80s, there's that same strategy that's applied where burn it, burn it, burn it, burn it. Whereas I've seen incredible results
from moisturizing it,
from using this, where this mist, the serum, the moisturizer with that hydration and the dermal nutrients are a big part of it, where the skin gets more resilient to the sun, not less as
when
it
it's
ages.
More moisturized.
Like, we still get wrinkles, of course, but there's a resiliency that happens there. But when we're just burning, like some of the things that were in your ears, or the keratosis that happens as we age for senior skincare, the more we burn it, it's again like soil. The more we are creating more and more and more vulnerable skin that then has to be burned more and more and more, and they will. I mean, they're burning people in their 80s, 90s, up until...
When you say burning, are you talking about like using the topical, like dermabrasion and stuff?
Well, not dermabrasion, but like they're freezing off these keratosis. Mm-hmm. They're using really, really strong acids. Oh, yeah. I mean, the Mohs procedure is important, and I'm not diagnosing cancer at all.
Yeah, that's for removing the margins if you have an actual skin cancer that's dangerous.
But those lesions begin years before in the skin, because of these blackheads and milia clusters that are being held in the skin for a lifetime. Right. And then on top of that is where these possible precursor lesions form, whereas they can be completely prevented through right care from the very beginning.
Because you're helping the skin purge the stuff that it doesn't need or that it doesn't want.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I think we took some off of your skin, and those are completely reversible and preventable with this procedure and with the whole methodology.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about, and this may be getting into a little too much detail, but I think it's interesting, is some of the dermal nutrient content, kind of what's in it? I mean, I don't even know all the details. It might be interesting for other people to hear.
It's a form of vitamin A. It's from the retinol family, but it's not a traditional retinol in the way that it's something called retinaldehyde. And retinaldehyde is, like I said, this retinol that is very, very, very potent and very, very strong. It's very difficult to stabilize, and that was why it just wasn't used for many years. But this doctor, Dr. Ben Johnson, I'll mention his name, he figured a way to stabilize this retinaldehyde, and he encapsulated it with liposomes. And so now we can apply it topically, and there's a profound absorption that takes place. It's bioavailable now. It can really, it's with the PC liposome, goes deeply into the skin, because traditional retinols will sit topically and create inflammation and a sun sensitizing effect. Like, when is that helpful? Like, we're trying to anti-age, but then we're sensitizing our skin to the sun.
Right. Like, if you use Retin-A, it tends to cause problems with people having sun sensitivity.
Exactly. And so this retinaldehyde that is available in this
absorbs
way,
into the skin.
It goes all the way in, creates this incredible amount of new skin cells, but without having to pay that price of being inflammatory or sun sensitizing. Yeah.
Nice.
Game changer.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there are any other specific things that you feel like you want to share about kind of, I think one of the things you said is, you've seen people over 10, 15, 20 years of being your clients, like using, because I think even the dermal nutrients, the way that you have them now formulated, have evolved for you over the last, I don't know how long you've had those specific.
Well, I've been working with
about
for 15 years.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I've kept them pretty much when I cracked the code on how to maximize their effect. I've pretty much kept it the same. Yeah.
Okay, and then the moisturizer that you use on top is just a little bit different, because I know you have several different ones that you use.
I've recently reformulated one of my moisturizers, but they're all just dense moisturizers that are very clean. A lot of
some of them smell really good too. They smell like chocolate.
Yeah, I do have one that smells like chocolate. Yeah, but most of them are devoid of essential oils, and they're natural, and we love them for cleaning and for cooking and for just the perfumery of that.
They're not always great for the face.
They're not great for our
skin.
face. They're very sensitizing and too astringent, very drying, and can cause a lot of reactions to people. So a lot of like my moisturizers are free of that. I have some
I think it's because it's cocoa butter too.
Right.
It just smells like chocolate.
I added chocolate powder to one of my moisturizers.
Oh, I have just the regular one that smells like chocolate. I'm like, it smells so good. My dog always wants to lick my face.
Right. That's just the plain cocoa butter. But I do have one that has chocolate in it. And I would like to speak to this is just the mental aspect of skincare, this mental emotional thing where just the insanity.
Well, I think especially for women as they age, it becomes such a money sinkhole, if you will.
Yeah.
And also there's a lot of insecurity that kind of plays into people's vulnerabilities around it.
And the psychology of having to always like, I got to peel away, get rid of my skin. Like every time you peel your skin, you're like, my skin is wrong and I have to get rid of it. And it hurts. Like you're burning, get rid. Oh, clean. I have to clean my skin.
Well, and some people will have to like be out of the sun and out of like not going out socially for a week or two if they do the skin treatments once a year, where they have some of the burning or pretty significant treatments. And so it takes a while for the skin to heal.
Yeah. And it never really heals all the way either. But just the psychology of always feeling like your skin is dirty and your skin is always like an old shoe or something, like it just doesn't, it's not in harmony of just like this, the vitality that we all are born with. And then we have to learn how to maintain and magnify in our life rather than let's just like.
Well, so it seems like, I mean, what I would say is you're coming at it from a much more beneficial or kind of a perspective of how do you maintain and promote vitality as opposed to how do you manage or do damage control instead.
Yeah. I mean, big picture, long term. I wouldn't be into any of this if it didn't actually deliver the long-term thing.
Right.
So I think people are fixated short-sightedly on these little things, doing some toxic band-aiding with them, because getting to the root cause of anything takes more work, takes more deliberation, takes more knowledge, all of those things. But the long term, that's where we're going.
Right.
Like we have to align our short term with our long term, and we want to go there.
And especially, like I said, and like with the final percent, one of our big things in focusing on vitality is giving people the tools to do things from a healthy space. And so that's one of the things I love the most about the way that you approach this, is because it's really about how do you help people heal themselves without doing more damage in the long run. And I think a lot of it's just like you said, lack of education. People don't understand that they can do it differently because this is what's kind of...
That's the carpet that's been rolled out.
What they've been shown.
And it's so true. It's just, if people are resourced and have...
They'll make better choices.
Information and, basics like food and water is what our skin wants. Like we give our skin these basics, we resource our skin, the most important being knowledge, then everything comes from that place.
Yeah. Super exciting.
Yeah. It's why I went through a phase in my career where I wanted to quit. I hated skincare. I thought this is a dead end. I was miserable. I didn't feel like I was helping anybody.
And is that because you're doing it the other way? And
Yes, it was that
align
chaos.
with your intuition and
it
your
was
values?
that chaos
Yeah.
that I was in my own discovery, up against it all. And so I get excited now because now it's this whole other thing that can come alive, and that can be when all of those things finally snapped.
Yeah, well, and you're coming from a place of your own intuition, like this makes sense. This is actually going to help people. It's going to empower people to make good choices.
The process carries itself.
Right.
It's just like, because it's such a dynamic, alive process, it just carries itself. It's really wonderful.
Well, so I mean, we will share your information if people want to reach out to you.
Yeah.
I think though that the fact that you can do it on your own with doing a moisturizing spray, like a hydration. I mean, I know you do the rose water,
but natural spring water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just doing something where it's a spray, and you talk about it being the thirsty moment when you come out of the shower.
Oh, that's right. You remembered that.
When you spray
Okay,
yourself.
so I want me to flesh that out.
Yeah.
Okay. So I named something the thirsty moment, and it's because it's this moment that our skin is so thirsty that it literally
it will suck up the moisture,
water into itself, which is what we want our skin to do. So when you step out of the shower, or you stand up from splashing your skin in the sink, you stand up, you step out of the shower, you take a big yummy towel and you dry your face really, really well. You get all the water off. And then you immediately grab your mister, and you want to do it right away. Because if you wait 5 minutes, your skin starts to dehydrate and get all dried out. It starts to buckle back in on itself. So while it's all moist from the steam in the shower and with all plumped up and fluffed up from the water, you want to dry it, and then immediately give it the really, really good water, and then get that serum in and get that moisturizer on top of it. Yeah. You don't want to wait 10 minutes.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Do you have any other words of wisdom you want to share, or do you feel like we addressed kind of most of the stuff with your program and your philosophies on skincare?
No, I'd be curious if, I guess I'm going to turn the question back on you. Like, what do you have any questions or insights or feedback or wonderings?
I think for me, it's been really interesting just to see the change or the shift in using the dermal nutrients and then using the really like thicker moisturizer. Like, I never really had a ton of acne growing up anyway. And I've had, I'm very fortunate and blessed to have pretty nice skin.
You do.
But I also feel like it's been really moisturizing over the last year and a half that I've been using it. And I think using really natural products. I mean, I'm always looking for food that's really clean, processes that are really clean. So this is another area that I feel like I've cleaned stuff up in terms of my skincare, because I don't have all the soaps and potions and stuff in the shower. Yeah. And then I have a few things that, I mean, even the moisturizers that I bought, I think I bought them last January, and I still have the big containers because they last for a long time.
Yeah, they do.
The dermal nutrients are the things that you kind of go through more quickly.
That's true.
But I think my skin looks really healthy, and I love that it's a really clean product.
Yeah.
And I want to keep my skin young forever.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to live for a really long
That's
time.
Right. I want to glow when I'm 100 years old.
Yeah, that's right.
You do too.
Yeah. Because I think so often, with medicine, I mean, there's things that aren't going as well with medicine, and, obesity is such a problem in our country. And so we're having more obesity related diseases. But when you can work on taking good care of yourself in terms of your overall health and vitality with some of the anti-aging stuff, but also really, hydrating well, exercising regularly, eating nutritious food, ideally, organic, grass-fed, cage-free, pasture-raised things, and not doing too many grains, and really, and if you're doing them, making them organic, so you're not exposed to as much of the garbage. That when you can keep yourself healthy from the inside, your skin is your biggest organ. You don't want to be putting stuff on your body that then is bringing stuff into your body that's not healthy. So I think it's just another arena where we need to be very smart and careful with the way that we take care of our skin, because it affects our insides too.
Yeah, and that I want to just touch on something that you said. when it comes to skincare, people often think, and maybe this is in other areas too, but if you go natural, you're sacrificing results. Like there's this like sacrifice, like you won't get results if you go natural. And that's what's so lovely about this process is in going natural,
you actually get better results.
You can actually get better results.
I think the biggest thing is so many people just don't really know about this. And I mean, you're like in a little, you know,
I know. I'm a needle
in
a
magical
haystack.
space.
I am like a needle in a haystack.
But it's
for sure.
it's unfortunate that more people don't have access to this information, because I think it really can give people tools where if you're doing it with, you know, spring water spray and aloe vera and, you know, an over-the-counter shea butter or cocoa butter.
And that makes me think of something. So there's this old belief that if we use an oil on our skin or a dense moisturizer, that it clogs our pores. And that is just absolutely false.
Because it's getting into the dermis and actually hydrating and moisturizing.
Well, the moisturizer won't penetrate into the dermis. It doesn't really penetrate our skin at all. It saturates a little bit to a degree, but it's not supposed to. Does it trap the moisture? But it creates a layer. Exactly. And it's mimicking what our own natural sebaceous glands and oils are supposed to be doing. And that's what this whole process does, is it brings back the ability of our sebaceous glands to do its job, is to, you know, provide that oil for our skin. So using an external oil, because it is genetic, some people make more oil than others, but putting that additional heavy moisturizer and oil on our skin doesn't clog pores. It's all the opposite.
It's surprising though. People think that's what they've been taught. And it's like the whole dry everything out.
And do you know why? This is why. Because when you increase water levels on the skin by inserting water and trapping with a moisturizer, the skin will start to purge. It's like hope for the skin. And it actually starts to push this gunk up and out. And then people think, oh, I'm clogging my pores.
It's causing all this acne.
And it's not true.
It's helping you clean your skin.
We're opening that detox pathway of our skin, which is a detox organ. So we're opening that pathway. And so it's not that we're clogging pores at all. We're actually, and it took me a while to figure this out. And now I would place, you know, I'm placing my whole career on it. Like, I just know it's true. Like, the sky is blue and this is true.
Well, we talk a lot about sometimes it's, I just know.
Yeah, I've seen it play out over thousands of people's skin over so many different, you know, cases where it's just the skin pushing stuff out and actually regaining its capacity to cleanse itself. Right. So you were open enough to use that dense moisturizer, because that's something that I bump up into with people, because it's subconsciously trained. It's in our psyche so deep that oil is going to clog our pores, and it's utterly false.
Yeah, well, and I would say in the first 6 months, I had a few milia that came up.
Yeah, and because they were stored in your skin, and it was your own skin's process
of cleaning
and the resource that it needed to actually push it up and out.
And I think since the last time I saw you, which was almost a year ago, I only have like 2 little ones.
Yeah, but your skin is activated now, and it's in that self-cleansing state where it has the ability to be dynamic and move stuff up and out, rather than to be a hall. It's supposed to be a hallway, our skin, but it turns into a storage unit.
That's an interesting philosophy. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I think it's great for people to learn different tools for how they can take good care of themselves. And I think this is such a, I don't know if I want to say unconventional, because it's actually a better process in a lot of ways to take care of.
It's my normal, and now it's your normal.
But it's unconventional because people just don't know about it. So one of the things we like to do is share really important information that can help people take better care of themselves, so that they can be healthier in the long run and have more vitality. And this is a perfect example of how do we help people figure out better ways to take care of themselves. So thank you for sharing all of your words of wisdom and years of experience.
Yeah, my honor and delight.
Thanks. So thanks for joining us today with Danny Neifert, and Dr. Eileen Gallagher on Skin Harmonics and how you take better care of your skin.
It's the final percent.